My son's name was Xander Augustin. Something that I remember the most about his short time with us was the time when we weren't really sure what was going to happen, but we did bring in one of my colleagues at work, a priest and a monk, to administer anointing of the sick. And I can tell you that that moment was something I cherish so much because despite the fact of what was going to happen inevitably, never had I felt so at peace and so close to God in that moment.
Welcome to Still a Part of Us, a place where moms and dads share the story of their child who was stillborn or who died in infancy. I'm Winter.
And I'm Lee. We are grateful you joined us today. Please note that this is a story of loss and has triggers.
Thanks to our lost parents who are willing to be vulnerable and share their children with us.
If you're listening to this podcast, just know that on our YouTube channel there are pictures and videos that are related to the stories that are being shared.
Subscribe and share it with a friend that might need it, and tell them to subscribe. Why? Because people need to know that even though our babies are no longer with us, they're still a part of us.
I would like to thank everybody for coming and joining me. We're talking with our father, Jason, and we are so very grateful, Jason, that you came and are willing to talk about your beautiful son, Xander. Your wife has already interviewed with Winter, and we're so excited that you have come on and agreed to come tell us
Uh,
about your son.
for sure. Thanks for having me. It's always good to from time to time to be able to talk about him and everything and try to obviously he's in heaven. All
Yeah,
that stuff is easy for me to try to comprehend and understand, but talking about him, it makes him feel like he's just a little bit closer to me.
it
So,
does. Yeah. Let's talk about you a little bit so
sure.
we get to know about you. What are some
Okay.
of your hobbies? I know you coach.
Yeah.
Maybe talk about how you got involved in coaching and what sport, and do
Oh,
you love it? Do you
I'm
love
a
it or do you hate it?
it's rewarding. It's fulfilling. I coach high school baseball. It's been doing this now for over 20 years, and so much. It's what I enjoy doing. It's a
Yeah,
comfort for me, and to me, honestly, it's a way for me to give back to the game of baseball. I've had a lot of tremendous mentors who have been, great father figures, brother figures,
yeah,
who have helped me along and helped me become not just a better baseball coach, but also a better husband and a better father.
yep,
I've been happy and lucky to surround myself with coaches who are first and foremost family men,
hmm,
fathers and husbands, and tremendous fathers and husbands at that. And I look up to them as role models for me. And now when I became a coach and everything, it's just it's a neat fraternity to be a part of.
yeah,
And but that's don't really have many hobbies because a lot of my time is spent on the baseball field with kids. And
yeah,
but honestly, when I get a chance to be able to tend the grill and cook, and
yeah,
those are things I enjoy. And so, but
yeah.
not a lot of hobbies because
No,
between coaching and teaching and trying to help my wife raise four boys is it's a lot of work.
yeah. I was going to say, statistically speaking, having five boys.
Yeah, five boys.
Uh, even having just five boys straight statistically is you guys are one in a billion or whatever.
So I guess I don't know if there's any science to it all, but you always get the joke from people like even hey, you gonna try for the girl? Like no shot, no shot trying for the girl. So,
Yeah.
but it's great. I feel bad for Sarah a lot because she's outnumbered. Because
Yeah.
not only the four boys, but also, we had a longtime dog in our family that he was a male, and we still have our cat. He's a male, and so she's outnumbered
Yeah.
very much in the household
Well, I'm sure she has her gaggle of women friend that make up for that.
for
Now
sure.
now I have a question.
Okay.
You coach baseball.
Mhm.
I'm
Mhm.
assuming you played it,
Yeah.
seriously
Yeah.
as a kid.
Uh-huh.
What position? What
I
like
pitched.
you
I was a
pitched?
pitcher,
You a
and
lefty or righty?
left-handed
Submarine?
pitcher. Just again, just something that you just do it,
Yeah.
and you realize that it's once I got to high school, this is pretty serious, and you love the work.
Hmm.
I had a weird. I enjoyed the work that was involved with it. Enjoyed the work of progress, and
Yeah.
I wasn't by any stretch of the imagination anybody that was going to be on TV one day, but you realize that I think that the impression that my coaches made on me,
Yeah.
you look up to them and you kind of realize this is a pretty noble profession, and
Yeah.
you say, God, these are good guys. Like I want to be like them, and to my high school coaches, and I thought the world of them. I thought they hung the moon for all I knew, and I still think that way of them. And
Yeah.
in fact, before we got on this, I was talking to one of them and just catching up, and now that coach to player relationship becomes coach to coach,
Yeah.
and obviously you become you're friends for life, and these are people who have been a part of uh, the most important parts of my life, whether it was Sarah and our wedding, being there for us when our kids were born, and being there for us when we had the miscarriages and even the death of my father. Like it's
Yeah.
and then obviously with Xander, I mean, and they're there,
Yeah.
and they've always been there, and it's something that to me it struck a chord knowing that what this is what I've aspired to be, this as a coach, as a human being, and
Hmm.
hopefully I can do that for my own players one day, and try to do the best I can, because they're my mentors, my coaching mentors have been great for me, and
Well,
so, but yeah, but that's
that's wonderful.
pretty much my baseball background. So
Well, that's the fraternity of friendship. As you were talking about, it grew from a player coach to coach to coach to a man to man relationship. So
yeah, for sure.
that's wonderful. Wonderful. Now, how good of a pitcher were you?
Oh gosh,
Were you a starter, relief?
I was a reliever, and again, like you know, one of those guys. Like the older I get, I'm not one of those guys that the older I get, the better I used to be. Like even with even the kids I coach, I don't share much about my own playing career, because there really wasn't much of one. You play in high school, and then I was fortunate enough to walk on and be on a college roster for a year, and that was a neat experience. And but at a certain point, you realize the juice isn't worth the squeeze anymore, and hey, maybe I should just coach. That's
Uh,
that's where my future is.
yeah,
So I was okay. Nothing
yeah,
nothing to write home about, and even in today's world, like if I was what I was back then, there's no shot that I'd ever even get a chance to sniff a college baseball rosters nowadays. But it's okay. It's something I've learned to live with, and it's just you can I think you can give a unique perspective to kids and try to pass along some of the knowledge you've picked up, and maybe I guess at a certain age I realized that being a Major League Baseball player wasn't going to be in the cards, but you
yeah,
realize how can I stay involved in the game, because the game brought so much to me personally.
yeah.
I talked about the friendships with my coaches and everything, and this is something that I've enjoyed. But yeah, it's fine.
Yeah. Well, if it wasn't for the Tommy John surgery, you would have been the next Randy Johnson, I'm sure.
I'll
So
keep I'll keep telling myself that. How's that?
I don't even know if you had Tommy Johns, but
No, no, I had my share of arm injuries, and it's quite
yeah,
extensive. But I'll
yeah.
I'll I'll tell myself that.
Well, good. Well, I'm a Cubbies fan.
Okay.
Do you have a pro team you follow, or
As I've
the
gotten
Savannah
older, like
Bananas?
no, I mean, as I've gotten older, I've the major league game is what it is.
Yeah.
I think I've been fortunate enough now to get to coach some good players that are in the minor leagues, and a couple that have made it to the big leagues, and you
Oh,
root for those guys. I
yeah,
root more for the
yeah,
individuals, that you have some kind of relationship with, whether it's
Mm.
you got to coach them or you became really close friends with them and
Yeah.
you follow them. But I love the college game. I love watching the college game. It's pretty neat and
Yeah.
very exciting to be a part of that and watch that.
Well,
So
that's cool. That's cool, man.
yeah,
Well, well, good. Sports are
yeah,
sports. I
yeah.
quickly found out that my rooting interest has no sway on anything in the
Oh
professional
yeah.
league.
My father was when I was a kid growing up. Like I remember you're so invested in pro sports, and I'm unapologetically a huge Michael Jordan fan. And even now, when you're kind of wasting too much time on the internet and all this stuff on you're just scrolling through and you see all the old highlights of Michael Jordan, and you're thinking, oh my God, what a what a time to get to watch him grow. When I was growing up,
Yeah.
when I was high school age kid, and I'm watching this guy, and I'm thinking to myself, oh my gosh, I mean, he's the greatest of all to all these things. And then I remember my dad made the comment one time, and I think I was spending way too much time focused on pro sports instead of my own
Yeah.
academics and my own athletics. And he said, these people are never going to have dinner with you. These people are never going to spend time with you. And you realize like, okay, that makes sense. I don't admit that until now, but it's like
Yeah.
so for me, my own investment now with athletics is with the kids I get to
Yeah.
coach or my own kids, and
Yeah.
that's where I'll live and die with things. So
Yeah.
if I'm a big Florida Gator fan, but if the Florida Gators lose in football, my life's not over. My
That's
life doesn't end.
yeah.
It's going to go on, and being from Jacksonville, big, root for the Jaguars, but there was a time in my life when if the Jaguars lost and that ruined the rest of my Sunday, and
Yeah.
now it's like, okay, well, I'll watch if I have time to watch,
Yeah.
and if not, no big deal. I got more important things to do, so
Well,
that's yeah.
I was going to say with the Jaguars, there was a lot of ruined Sundays for you then.
A lot, yeah. There was but
Or
again, it's what it is. What do you do about it? There's
yeah.
there's nothing I can do about it, and I'll invest emotionally and again in my players that not just my baseball players, but also the kids I
Yeah.
get have the opportunity to teach in the classroom. Like when I see them do well, that's really awesome. When I see them struggle, you feel for them and you try to empathize with them and you try to be encouraging to them. And when they get hurt, God forbid, like you just want to be
Yeah.
an adult who cares about them. And
Yeah.
I think that's a lot more fulfilling than what might go on a Saturday or Sunday, in my
Yeah.
opinion.
Well, good.
Yeah.
Well, now we've established the character of a man that you are. Let's talk about how you and Sarah met. How did
Oh
you
gosh,
meet your
we just
wife?
just randomly, I was just out and about, and I saw a pretty girl and just started using some really cheap lines, and I made the comment that I thought that she had some really nice jeans, and I
Okay.
mean, next thing you know, she fell for it, and I walked out. I guess back then we used phone numbers,
Oh
unlike
yeah.
today's world that, I don't know what Snapchat is. I don't have
Yeah.
any of the social media
Yeah.
stuff. So, you get the girl's phone number, get Sarah's phone number, and next thing you know, I'd like, do you want to go on a date? Like, would you like to spend some
Yeah.
time and all this? And next thing you know, you realize that
This is
she's
the
a special
woman.
person.
Yeah. The
Yeah,
woman you want to
special
spend the
individual.
life.
Yeah.
And how long did you guys date? Was it a quick
Oh gosh.
engagement?
We dated for. Yeah, she might get mad at me if I get the numbers wrong on this.
Oh,
We had dated for I think for 3 years, 3.5 years. We got engaged.
yeah.
We met in April of '06, ended up getting married in November of 2010, and again, like I mean,
Yeah.
she's wonderful. Like
Yeah.
I can tell you this that not to get too sappy, but she met me at a point in my life where I was not exactly. I didn't have it all together yet.
Do
It
we ever?
was no, we don't. But it was it was a very. I tell people like, look, when Sarah met me, I didn't look like this. I was much heavier set. I was not what the secular world would call a very attractive human being. And for some reason or another, and I didn't have money. I was on this path to being a teacher and
Hmm.
a coach. So it's not like she was going to be with me for money, but for some reason she fell in love with me, and obviously very grateful that she did.
Yeah.
But yeah, I look, I mean, from the world's perspective, I look better than I did 20 years ago, but she saw me for something a lot more than what's on the
What's showing
outside,
now?
thankfully.
Yeah.
So,
Now, was that because you guys are on the East Coast?
mhm.
Did you meet her on the East Coast
We
or?
were, yeah, I was in Jacksonville.
Okay.
It was my first year. After college, I lived in Texas for a couple years, and just
Hmm.
was just being a big child,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
came back to Jacksonville, where I'm from, and I started working at my alma mater, my high school alma mater, and she was finishing up college, and just again happenstance, random meeting, and you know, the rest is history.
The rest is history. All
Yeah,
because of genes.
all because of jeans.
Well, wonderful.
Yeah,
From the get-go, you guys have a large family. You guys have
yeah,
five boys. Did
yeah.
you want a large family?
Um,
Did you guys ever talk about it or?
I think, I came from. I have an older sister, 10
Mhm.
years older than me, and it's just us two. And I didn't, because of the age difference. I didn't,
Yeah.
there
Yeah.
was never hey, let's go play.
Hmm.
So my sister was more just my parents. I just watch out for your brother.
Yeah.
Just don't.
Yeah.
And so it's just us two. She's the oldest of six. And so I kind of wanted to be in between there. I
Yeah.
didn't want just two. We wanted, I think three is what we settled on. And because her coming from six was a lot.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
and then obviously when we were at three and
It
like, all
happens.
right, we're good. We're all, we
Yeah.
made a life change to move to Savannah for just as a time for a change of pace.
Hmm.
And then you think, oh my, it's not time to settle in the middle, midlife. And I always, it's what God says. And,
Yeah.
or when people say, hey, when you tell God your plans, he's going to laugh at you. And
Yeah.
he
No.
threw a curveball at us for sure
Yeah.
with the twins. But, you
Curve
know,
and a change up.
yeah, a lot. It was definitely a lot, and because like I said, you settle in and you realize, hey, this is going to be our life now with three boys, and you're pretty comfortable with things, and boom,
Yeah.
inside of a year of living in a new place, everything just changes.
Yeah.
And but
Well,
it's part of the journey. Sure.
let's talk about the pregnancy of
Sure.
Xander and
Xavier. Yeah.
Xavier.
Yeah.
Um,
Um, so I think that what's funny, we're Catholic.
mhm.
You go through all the through the pre-Cana stuff, or the pre-mar, and hey, you got a natural family planning and understanding
Mhm.
that. And look, I teach theology. I'm a Catholic school theology teacher, so I've got to toe the stripe on this and make sure that I'm not speaking
Yeah.
out both ends here, but.
Yeah.
So, but for all intents and purposes, everything that we had, you know, put into practice was spot on. I mean, when we tried to achieve pregnancy, we did, and then when it's what it is, and
Yeah.
then you realize that something's not right. Sarah might kill me for this one, but when I started to get suspicious and
Yeah.
realized that there were around a certain time of the month there was not.
It wasn't happening. What was
There was
normal?
some certain products were not being,
Yeah.
I didn't see a presence of certain
Yeah.
products, for my wife, and I got, you get worried and you start wondering, and then you kind of like just say, hey, okay, is everything okay? What's going on? And you find out, and I said, and I said to Sarah, I was like, did we screw this up? Did we mess up the calendar?
Yeah.
And she said, "No, we've been good." So okay, well, and I think that was like, oh crap moment, and then you think to yourself, okay, take a deep breath. all right, we've done this before, we can do it again. Not what we expected, but I remember we had said, okay, it's what it is. It's what it's going to be. We didn't share it with anybody just because even between with the first three boys, our oldest, he was sandwiched between two miscarriages. So we
Oh,
had learned,
yeah,
or
yeah,
I was very always waiting for the other shoe to drop,
yeah,
especially with pregnancy and everything. And so we didn't say anything. And so I remember this is wild. Like I did share it with one person who's a former player of mine that I hold in the highest of regards. And
hmm,
I remember having lunch with him and he's like, how's everything going? And this is maybe I think about 4 to 6 weeks into this. And
yeah,
I told him, I said, Dan, I said, Sarah's pregnant, and he was just like, he's at the time he's a 21,
yeah,
19, 20-year-old kid. And he's excited. Like he's going to be a great father one day when he gets married and has kids. And he's like, oh man, you're gonna have such a big family and stuff like that. And I'm terrified because, I've 4 kids. What am I going to
yeah,
do? And, even for a 19, 20-year-old kid to be that positive and that, I guess, excited for me, it meant a lot to me. Right. And
yeah,
so I remember, when we went for the first appointment and we're at the hospital or the facility. And the funny part was I literally had to, as soon as we were done there, I was going on the road to Hoover, Alabama for a baseball event. And I had to stop in Atlanta to pick up one of my coaches, or my assistant coach from the airport. And I remember this, like I remember going in and the ultrasound. And I'm looking at the ultrasound, and you try to, we all think that we know more than we actually do. And you're sitting there and you're looking at the ultrasound monitor, and I see two little flutters, and
mm,
I'm kind of like looking sideways at this, and I'm thinking, is that what I think it is? And I think that the nurse, the ultrasound tech, she made a comment about I can't. It was weird. It was something about I don't know if there's like something about like wives' tales and cats and twins, but she made that, and maybe I'm already in La La Land because
yeah,
I don't know what's going to happen. Or I already subconsciously know what's about to happen, and something about cats, something about wives' tales, and then something about twins running in my wife's family,
oh,
and so and I kind of gave her that look, and she goes, "You got twins." And Sarah starts crying and laughing, and I might have just, I did use some explicit profanity in there, like joking around, like, you know, screw you, like to the technician, like not in a negative way, like just like in that
yeah,
shock and
and with
surprise.
such
And,
a, yeah,
and so now you're thinking, what the heck is going on here? And, you're sitting there and Sarah and I are in shock,
yeah,
like, well,
oh,
golly, well, all right, well,
yeah,
great, and so you walk out of there and you're just in a daze and you're just, whew, twins, first, okay, pray, like, now you're like, okay, now it's twins.
yeah,
And I just remember like, you think about the silliest things, when you go through this. And I like literally I just bought, I needed a bigger vehicle. So I got this Chevy Traverse. And so and in the back of my mind, knowing that, hey, I might, there's gonna be a fourth child here.
yeah,
And I'm thinking to myself, oh my God, did I make a mistake not getting like a van that could seat five and all this stuff? And like you think
yeah,
the dumbest things that you think about at this moment. And then of course, I'm awful, right? So we, drive back to the house, and I'm like, all right, I gotta go. I gotta meet Miguel in Atlanta. So, I gotta pick him
have
up. We gotta
fun,
go to Hoover. Yeah, see you
have fun
later.
processing this.
Yeah,
I'm out.
yeah. So that was that, and then you have all these. It's just emotional, right? You're like,
Uh-huh.
this is all you're thinking about now, and then you start thinking about like all the things that, quite frankly, you should think about when it comes about, like, okay, what's this coaching thing going to look like? What am I going to do now? Like, instead of thinking about your wife, you're thinking about yourself, which is kind of so bad. But are we going to be able to get through all this? Like, what are we going to
Yeah.
do? And of course, I love my mother. I think she's a wonderful human being. And even after we had our second child, she said, "You guys are done, right? You're done having kids." And you know, maybe one more, mom. And then after our third one came
No.
along, "You guys are done, right? Yeah, we're done. We're done." And then all I'm thinking is like, "Oh my God, my mom's gonna kill me. She's gonna kill me. Like, what's my mom?"
Yeah.
And of course, again, you think about the dumbest things, and but you're still excited
Yeah.
because it's the unknown. And I think that at the end of the day, I go back to this, like, whew, God gave us some incredible powers. The power to create is something that, wow, I mean, we made life, we created life,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
wow, we're going to bring two more children into this world, like, and of course, okay, we'll figure it out. We'll figure it out, like we always, we've always figured things out. And so from it was like late June when we found out. So at that point, Sarah's probably about, I think, 10 or 11 weeks along at that point in time. And, you know, now you just
Yeah.
sit and wait. And,
You just got to
I
go
think,
forward with faith.
yeah, yeah, for sure. And then, obviously I remember, like, at this point now, like, she wanted girls. Which is, I get, because you already have
Mhm.
three boys.
Yeah.
You want to have that experience of raising daughters and everything. And then Sarah had, yeah, I remember she had the blood test done, and she was up to see her family in Ohio when she got the results that, yes, obviously twins, and they're gonna be boys. And
Oh,
so, it was, you know, I think it was a little
a little
bittersweet
much.
for her.
Yeah.
Yeah, but of course, I think about the dumbest things. It's like, I'm here to, I teach at a Catholic all boys military school, and I'm thinking, okay, all you're thinking about is 18, 19 years down the road. All right, good. They're going to come to school with me, and they're going to get a good tuition discount. This is huge, and
We're
again,
gonna be
dumb things that
sa-
we think about,
we're
so
gonna save money on clothes because of the
right.
hand-me-downs.
Pass it down, stuff like that.
We're
And,
gonna be able to have an infield.
right.
Sweet.
Correct. So, but, they're, where it's, so we're at that point, and we start telling people. And I think people are like, "Congratulations?" question mark, or like, what, like, oh my
Yeah.
gosh. And I remember calling my friends, and they're just laughing at me because I
Yeah.
think some of my friends, especially my friends in Jacksonville that know me well, like, I'm a, like, joker, I'm a prankster, and like they thought I was kidding around. They even
Oh, they learn quickly.
so it's but people are excited for you. I think people wanted to see how we'd react as a family. Like, oh
Yeah.
my gosh, you're already in midlife, and you're, gosh, I was 41 at the time. And oh, here we go, gonna have more kids. And
Yeah.
so but it was exciting, for sure. And you know once once we started getting past, I guess, certain milestones and weeks and everything, you realize, okay, it's
Yeah.
time to get serious now. And realize that we're going to get to a point where
Yeah.
we really have to work together and buckle down, and
Yeah.
prepare for twins. So,
Well, nice. Now, question.
mhm,
When did you start telling people, first of all, that you were pregnant, and second of all, that you're
mhm,
having twins? Was it later? Because typically around, what is it, 18, 19, 20 weeks is when you have the anatomy scans, and that's
right.
sometimes when people start
Uh,
seriously telling.
I think when she had the blood test done,
Hmm.
we were able to tell the gender first,
Okay.
like the gender of the boys. And um, when we told our, we told people, we said
Yeah.
it's twins. We didn't tell anybody between when we realized that Sarah was pregnant and then that appointment. We didn't tell anybody,
Yeah.
and then the other than the young man I had lunch with, but when we told it was around if end of July-ish
Yeah.
or
So
so that yeah.
you weren't keeping it secret like for most of the pregnancy. It was,
No, and I guess like with our friends, no, like our close friends, we and for all intents and purposes, I have a very even my work life here, like I'm believe it or not, I'm pretty private with some of this
yeah.
stuff, and I didn't ask unless somebody saw us, like, or
Yeah.
if somebody just if so, or I wouldn't volunteer unless somebody just asked, so. I think I told the people, obviously my administration, hey, look, this is happening. Just,
I may
I
need to take a couple.
might take some time off here and greatly appreciate your support here on all this. And but so they knew
Hmm.
obviously, and then but as far as like I didn't even tell my students,
Yeah.
like just because I was still my second year and I'm again it's such a you still want to wait, but our loved ones knew, our closest friends knew,
Yeah.
and all that. So
Oh, good.
yeah,
And how was the pregnancy going? How was?
I mean, for all intents and purposes, I think until October 5th, like I think that, okay, all right, well, we're,
Yeah.
weekly appointments and stuff like that. And well, I think baby A is trailing a little bit in his weight
Yeah.
and size and stuff like that. Nothing to worry about or nothing of concern, whatever.
Yeah.
And so you put it in the doctor's hands. It's fine.
Yeah.
It's what it is, and you just see what happens. And everything was okay, I think, and until October 5th.
Yeah.
So
Now, how
yeah,
far into the pregnancy was October 5th? Where did
27 weeks,
27
27 weeks on the
weeks?
dot. Yeah, yeah.
And what happens?
So Sarah had to go in for her appointment. It was a weekly appointment. No, nothing at all. And I remember that day, like my own little world. I was literally that afternoon. I was scheduled to go down to Jupiter, Florida, for a big baseball event, and I was going to take my three boys down to because we had an extended fall break. Take my boys to my mom in Jacksonville and drive
Yeah.
down to Jupiter and all that. And so I remember. My wife never calls me. Like she doesn't call me unless there's something, hey, this is,
Yeah.
we need to address something. Um, so I remember it was around 2 o'clock and she called me and said, hey, we need to talk. I said, okay. And she said that the OB, we need to have a conference call because there's some complications. I said, all right. I said, well, just, I'm done at 3:05, 3:10.
Yeah.
I can get on a phone call and everything. And so, you're wondering what's going on and is everything going to be okay and stuff like that. And I remember, going into a place, I was walking around pacing, and I remember Sarah calls and she gets, me and Sarah, the doctor, and I are all on a call, and I kind of go in a study room and just kind of explain the circumstances, like, hey, look, there's some complications, you know, uh, it's a condition called TAPS, and I can't even
Oh, yeah.
transanemic, and that's all I remember of it, um, and one twin is very sick, and the other one is, because of his result of him being very sick, twin B is sick as well.
Hmm.
And I said, well, I said, look, I deal in probability, I deal in numbers. Like, what are we looking at here? Like, what's like, what do we do?
Yeah.
I said, well, if twin A, which was Xander, he has if he makes it, if he survives, you're looking, and that the odds are about 5 to 10%. You're looking at a very difficult life for him, physical and mental handicap, disabilities, your quality of life as a family for not just your son, but your other boys and your wife are, it's going to suffer tremendously as well. And I said, what about, Xavier? Well, if we're able to C-section, at the appropriate time, he has a good shot at, having a good life, a normal
Yeah.
life.
Yeah.
And I said, well, what do we do? And I think that the doctor made a comment about, we're too late to have selective pregnancy. And I said, look, that's not even an option for us. That's not happening.
Yeah.
I'm not going down that road. And I said, look, if that's your wife, if Sarah was your wife, what would you tell her?
Yeah.
And he said, um, admit her immediately, around the clock, 24/7 care with, just ultrasounds and all that. And at the appropriate moment, we would need to have an emergency C-section and get both the babies. And unfortunately, if Xander passes away in utero, Xavier will probably as well. And I said, okay, we'll go ahead and admit her. And so I remember like thinking, just go ahead and admit her. And now all of a sudden, all the other things in your life that are,
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
for instance, like, like everything just floods at you at one moment. Like,
Yeah.
what do I do about the boys? What do I do about
Yeah.
going down to Florida? Because obviously I'm not now.
Yeah. Yeah.
What do I do? I mean, this is still 2022, and we're still in a world that we're trying to come
Yeah.
out of this COVID thing. So we have
Yeah.
no idea, right? So,
Yeah. There's so much unknown.
yeah. So, and I remember something, and this is, I said, we'll go ahead and admit her and all that stuff. And of course, again, we think about the most mundane things. And Sarah said, hey, I need you to bring my phone charger. I said, okay, yeah, that's fine. I mean, whatever. And so the doctor says, hey, where do you guys live? And we explain where we live. It's like 35 minutes away from the hospital. He said, do you want to go get some stuff for your,
Yeah.
do you and Sarah want to go home to get some stuff? Because this could be a lengthy stay. I'm like, no, just admit her now.
Yeah.
Of course, in retrospect, you can look back at it, and, the best decision we made as a couple was admitting now, because if we had said, no, we'll go home and get her stuff,
Yeah.
both of them would have passed away because of the time. We didn't realize the time frame with what we're dealing with.
And this was
And
27 weeks
yes,
gestation,
yeah,
right? Oh,
27 weeks gestation. And also, you realize that with TAPS, there's 5 stages of severity, and with stage 5 being death, and Xander was at stage 4, and so there's already heart failure issues taking place in utero, and I'm assuming that's what, and I'll be the first one to tell you, like, I can't go online to look at that stuff,
yeah.
the science, because I just, it's too much. Like, I don't
Yeah.
want to, there's nothing I can do about it now. So,
Yeah.
but I guess it was very severe. So I remember getting off the phone. I went to go pick up the boys at their school, and the first thing we did was we went inside the church, and I told them in the church, I said, guys, we need to pray for mommy and the twins, because the twins are very sick, and mommy's going to have to stay at the hospital. Mommy's going to the hospital like right now. And so the 3 boys are in there, in various stages of various ages, and their understanding of stuff, and
Yeah.
we're all trying to not cry. We're crying, we're not crying, we're upset, and we're just in silence. And I remember, as soon as we got out of there, I called my mom. I said, Mom, this is what's going on. And I said, I don't know what to do. And because my mom's not, she's not at the stage where she can just drive up to,
Yeah.
she doesn't want to do that, whatever. So she says, no, just bring the boys down and just go back. You've got 5 days off. We'll figure out the rest. I said, okay, that's fine.
Yeah.
So, and then I literally, I call, I call the baseball people that I work for, away from school. And I said, look, I'm not going to Jupiter. And this, what's going on? And I explained it to them. They said, okay, do what you got to do. And
Yeah.
they were great about it. And so we go to the hospital to get my wife's charger. And I remember, like, I have no idea. Never been to this hospital before. And I don't know. Like, I
Mhm.
guess. And so it took 20 minutes just to find her room. And obviously, I'm thinking about, oh my God, boys are in the car, like, thankfully the cars are locked. Let's just
Yeah.
make, they're, whatever. So we go and I bring her phone and I remember leaving and I said, okay, I'm going to go to Jacksonville, come right back. So this is going to be a 5 hour round trip. And I remember when I'm literally about to get on I-95 and Sarah calls me and says, hey, they're getting the babies now. I said, now? And she goes, yeah, they got to go get them. I said, okay. I said, what do you want me to do? And she goes, we have a wonderful, wonderful family that lives across the pond from us, and their daughter is so wonderful with our boys, and she babysits for them, and so they'll be at the house, just take the boys home, and then come back up. And I'm like, okay, so
Oh,
um,
what a
so
blessing.
no, it was big because
Yeah.
at that point, like again, you don't know people, so you don't. We've only been here for a short time and a little more than a year, and to have a family to be able to rely upon like that was so important for us
Yeah.
and a blessing. And I remember taking getting to the house, literally dropping them off, and I'm like, okay, this could be a while, so let me. I changed clothes. I got in the most comfortable clothes I could get in, and I hustled back to the hospital, and I'm probably breaking every traffic law that exists known to man. And then I get, I'm like looking around, I'm not oriented with the hospital, so I'm asking like, hey, where's Sarah? Where's my wife? And,
Yeah.
they said, okay, they're wheeling her out of surgery now. I'm like, okay, and so you go back and you see her, and obviously, she has the C-section, and they have, I guess the nurse took some pictures right there, and all that. And, obviously she's hopped up on painkillers and everything. So
Yeah.
I'm like, are they okay? Are the boys okay? Or, I don't know. Like, I don't know. Like
Yeah.
it's something that I wasn't sure about. And so
How were you feeling? I'm sure there was so much anxiety and adrenaline rushing through you as you were driving to the hospital. But once you
I
got
think
there,
the uncertainty, it's something that I don't, like, okay, all right, you're like, okay, wait, okay.
yeah.
And in my mind, and this is unfortunate about it all, like I felt a sense of relief because I thought that Xander was going to be okay. Like
Oh,
not
yeah.
okay,
Well,
like
no, no,
okay,
but yeah, yeah,
he's gonna survive. They got him out in time.
yeah,
He's gonna be okay. All right, it's so what? We'll figure
yeah.
it out. Well,
But as a family, we
if
could figure. Yeah,
yeah, it's okay. And so I thought there was a sense of relief, a sense of unknown, but again, I in my mind I thought, okay, everything's going to be okay. I didn't realize the
yeah.
severity of things,
Oh, yeah. And you can't
but
fault yourself for that.
yeah, it's again like you learn to live with it. But so Sarah's in recovering, and we're just sitting there, and like of course people are finding out what's going on, and so they're texting and they're checking in and all this stuff, and I don't know, I don't know. Like,
Hmm.
I don't know what's so unknown,
Yeah.
so uncertain about what's going on. And finally, they put her back, they bring her back to her room. And I remember the twins were born at like 6:30 and
Hmm.
6:31, somewhere around there. And I remember it's around 11:15 or 11:30. And I'm like, I kind of want to see, can we see them? Like,
Yeah. Oh,
I
yeah.
didn't know. And so they said, yeah, you can go down. I see, NICU and go see them. I said, okay, cool. I'd like to see them.
Hmm.
And so you go down and they're all, they're so tiny. I mean,
Oh,
like I think Xavier was 2 pounds, 2 ounces, and
yeah.
Xander was 1 and 3.
Oh,
And they were so tiny and so little, like, golly, like I could probably hold Xander in the palm of my hands right
mm,
now. And
yeah.
you see them and they're all hooked up to the monitors, and you hope that, I think in my mind you think, okay, all right, modern healthcare, we're gonna be okay. Like, so you're sitting there and you're marveling at all this because that's your
Yeah.
boys. Those are your new sons and everything. And I remember like, this is unbelievable. And I remember, Sarah went back up, we wheeled her back up to go get some rest. And, I went home to go check on the boy or to be with the boys and everything. So, family they could go back to their house. And I remember, waking up the next morning and it's like 7 in the morning and no news, I guess. And no
Yeah.
news is good news. And so I remember thinking to myself, okay, I'm going to go take the boys down to my mom's now and go come back. And so uh, drove them down, came back. And I remember at that time, I called my colleagues, one of the teachers here that's a priest, and one of the other monks here, and they came up to the hospital. They administered anointing of the sick to the boys, the emergency baptisms, and again, like I cannot tell you how calm and at peace I was as a father, as a husband, as somebody who tries to be a man of faith.
Yeah.
To have father and brother there at that moment was I will never forget that as long as I live. Like it
Yeah.
was very special to me, and
Oh yeah.
I just remember just thinking, okay, it's going to be fine. Like we'll be okay. Whatever happens is going to happen. And
Mhm.
um, I remember, you know, um, it's even as the nurses and the doctors were trying to explain, trying to stabilize Xander and everything. Hey, just do what you got to do. This is your job. Like
Yeah.
this is what you've trained to do. Find a way. You can do this. You got this. And I remember that night we're just sitting. I mean, we're exhausted. We are
Oh.
exhausted. Sarah more than
Oh
me,
yeah.
obviously, but um, and I remember just like saying, "Look, I'm just gonna spend the night," because her parents had flown in. So like, I'll spend the night at the hospital. I don't, I'm too tired
To drive.
to go
Yeah.
back to the house and all this stuff. So I remember we fell asleep, and then around 2:30 in the morning, I get jolted awake. Like one of the NICU nurses or the head nurse came in and shook me awake and said, "You guys need to come down like right now."
Mm.
And wake Sarah up. We get her rolled. We come down and you know, um, you get down to the NICU, and when you get down there, the doors are already open, and everyone that's in the NICU, working nurses, they're all lined up
Yeah.
in a, you know, uh, two by two, whatever, and two lines, and they're waiting for you. They have a walkway for you, and you realize what's going on. And I think, and again, like
Oh yeah.
I don't know, like like you realize that okay, this is serious. My assumption is that they were trying to keep Xander alive long enough for us to say goodbye. Um, I think at one point the doctor said, "Look, you enough damage has been done to his brain that you guys need to really consider letting go." And I said, "Yeah, yeah." I looked at Sarah and of course now like what do you do? Like what do
Oh yeah.
you
It's
and
such a poison chalice.
right. And that the, this is it. Like
Hmm.
his body can't, too much damage has been done to his body from the TAPS condition. And obviously now, because if he has stopped breathing, if his heart stopped and now the brain, all those things, lack of oxygen. And I think I said, told Sarah, we need to let go. Like we just got to let go. Like,
Yeah.
there's, um,
Mm.
it's
Yeah.
just time, just, and, they take him off the monitors and all that stuff. So I think so Sarah and I could hold him for a few minutes and that was it. And, it's such a surreal, like, you realize that, that this is happening.
Mm.
And like, to this day, it's a fog. I don't. but very numb, very, very numb and emotionally numb where you just, what do you feel? How do you feel? And I think that for us, like, and I remember just like and I'm a nervous pacer. Like I can't sit still, right?
Yeah.
It's such a, like what do you do? And I kept walking back and forth between Xander and going over to Xavier's little NICU
Pod.
bed and
Yeah.
everything. And I'm like, you're just hoping he's going to be okay. And I remember the doctor, she came up to me and she gave me a hug and she said, Jason, I know this is not going to make you feel better, but you guys did the right thing. I said, look, what, I,
Yeah.
what do you do? Like, what are
Yeah.
you supposed to do here? Like, there's no manual for this.
No.
There's no, there's no right answer. There's no wrong answer.
Mm.
There's, you, and Xander's gone. God decided to call him home for some reason. And, you know, I think that was probably, you just, and you're just spending time with him. And,
Yeah.
I don't, there's no regrets. I don't have regrets with this. I think the only one I do have is that I really wish I had known the inevitability like this. Like, hey, if I could go back and say, all right, Jason, this is going to happen. Would you change anything? The thing I would change was like from the second that I could be in that NICU until the moment he passed away, I would have stayed with him.
Yeah.
I would never have taken my boys back to Jacksonville to be, to see just so my mom could watch them. I figured it out. Like I would have spent every moment I could with him, and that way, those 32 hours would have been 32 hours with my son.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's
You loved him. You loved
oh
him.
yeah,
You loved him his whole life, even though
yeah,
you.
you love it. Like
Yeah.
it's, even from the book of Jeremiah, I loved you from the moment,
Yeah.
from that moment that we realize, hey, you exist
Yeah.
is unconditional love. We'll do whatever it takes for you. Like,
Hmm.
and so now you're just sitting here like, what the hell do you do now? Like, what do
Yeah.
you do? And you think about, we called Sarah's parents. They came up and I called my mom. I said, do not tell the boys, I'll have to figure that out later, but don't tell the boys what happened. And you realize that, hey, it's, what do you do from here? And I mean, now you're thinking about things like, okay, you gotta do,
Hmm.
there's gotta be a funeral for a
Yeah.
2-day old infant. And,
Yeah.
what do you do about, do you bury a child? Like uncharted territory here. So,
Now I have a
um,
question. Of
sure.
course, this is Xander's story,
Hmm.
but you
Yeah.
also have to face the reality that Xavier is also
Oh,
there. How is
there,
he doing?
I guess like, for all intents and I guess like with whatever with the condition of TAPS, the recipient donor or recipient of the excessive red blood cells, I guess that completely probably screwed that up. Like his blood flow was kind of sluggish. Um, and he was obviously on a ventilator. His lungs were too weak, obviously, because he's only
Mhm. Oh
27
yeah,
weeks.
27.
He's he was feisty. Like he was a little fighter. He still is a fighter.
Yeah.
Um, there's a picture that, I'm sure Sarah said this, but there's a picture that, that was taken where it's probably one of the most, I want to say favorite because that's so weird to say that,
Yeah.
but
I
it's a
like it.
picture that is very powerful for us, for me personally, where Sarah and I are, Sarah's holding Xander and, and I'm there and I'm, I guess distraught, sad, obviously. And in the background, you see Xavier in the background and a light because I guess he's
Oh
they had to do the
yeah,
light thing
light
where
therapy,
yeah, because I guess with the Billy Rubens
Billy
and
Rubin.
all yeah. So you see that light shining down, and it's like, in your greatest in your in the greatest moment of despair for you and your wife and your family, you have hope in the background.
Yeah.
And so I think that, and again, like I don't know if this is right, wrong, or indifferent, but even though you lost your son, you know that okay, you still have Xavier sitting back there fighting, and you have to be there
You
for
have
him.
to be there.
You have to be strong for him. You have to
Mhm.
pray for him. You have to, try to be there for your wife and for your kids and say, okay, well, if Xavier is okay, at the very least, like it's a whole different it's a game changer, I guess you could say. And now you have to pray and hope that he's going to be okay and
It's
understand
such,
that, yeah,
I was going to say, it's such opposing feelings because you have the pain and this despair of
yes,
loss, but
yep,
then you have the hope
yes,
and pleading
yeah.
for life for your other son.
And
And it's such a
it's
tearing. It's
and it was tough because you're in the NICU and I don't, and again, like maybe this is, I don't like where the boys were at, you know, I guess I think Xavier stayed there for about another week and a half or 2 weeks before they moved him to a different wing. And
mhm,
but for that week and a half or 2 weeks when he was still literally 10 feet away from where Xander was, like the feelings of sorrow,
yeah,
feelings of sadness, and then the feelings like it's all like right there. Like, to have those moments, right then and there at that moment, like to say, okay, well, there's Xavier. He's going to be okay, and you celebrate the milestones of of okay, he's you know you have a moment where he's like the first 3 or 4 days, like he hasn't gone to the bathroom, and you're like they're worried, and he
yeah,
finally does, and like you're overjoyed at a dirty diaper that looks awful,
yeah.
and you realize, okay, well his breathing is getting better, so reducing, you're just trying to start weaning him off to different things with the ventilator and all those things. And then when they moved him to the wing where he spent, because he was in the NICU for 81 days for 13 weeks on the dot. When he got moved to the wing that he ended up spending, a good, a majority of his time there, I think there was some relief because you didn't have to go back into that room, into
Yeah.
that wing of the NICU,
Mm,
and lot more peaceful where we were at. Not as crazy,
mhm.
but it was again a very emotional roller coasters to say the least.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. So, Xander,
mhm.
you were you able to spend time when the doctors said, "Hey, you guys
Yeah,
have got to make a decision."
right.
You took him off the ventilator.
Yeah,
Did he live a couple moments, couple minutes, or
probably not. Like the heart
okay,
rate was,
yeah,
and so I mean, you just
yeah,
pretend he's
yeah,
asleep. He's
yeah,
asleep.
yeah,
He's asleep, and again, you hold him, you touch him, and I think one of the things that Sarah did, and I'm glad she had the moment. She said, "Can I hold both of them?" And of course, in my mind, I'm thinking, "Oh my gosh, is this safe for Xavier? Like, is he
yeah,
going to be
yeah,
okay?" And they said, "Yes, absolutely. Go ahead." And um, she got to hold them. Xavier will never know that for a few moments, we made sure that they held hands. But she got to hold she got to hold her boys, and it was something that bittersweet, obviously.
yeah.
We had him for, we got, spent some time with him, and then like what do you do? Like,
Oh,
you have to, how do you handle all this? And I guess what this hospital does is like, in instances like this, they have like I guess it's like a crib that's a cold crib
yeah.
where, they can, the baby can be with you until he's taken away and
Slows
taken
down.
to,
Yeah,
yeah, until he's, And so he got this, he was with us, and at that moment I decided to go, I drove to Jacksonville. I got my mom, and I got the boys. I said, look, this is, the baby Xander's there at Sarah's bedside in the hotel, in the hospital, and you can see him and meet him and hold him and all that. And um and I told the boys on FaceTime. I said, your Xander had to go to heaven, and I remember that, my three boys are very, very different in their processing. Like my
Yeah.
oldest is, he's going to keep to himself, but he's sad. My second, he's the emotion. He works his hardest. I mean, he is sobbing. He is so distraught. And
Yeah.
then my third one, he's like, so he's dead. I'm like, yeah, Oscar, he's in heaven, buddy. Okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, he's very matter of fact and all that. And so so picked up my mom and my boys, and we brought him back up, and they got to spend some time with Xander. We brought some close friends, family friends who the godparents of my third child, and then they became they were going to be the godparents of the twins, and
Yeah.
obviously Xavier's godparents, and we're all there, just
Hmm.
get to see him and hold him, and again, like it was so tough. Like I think the hardest part was, I guess, with the funeral home, and I guess these are all obviously very delicate situations.
Yeah.
I said, look, I understand that things have to be done. I get it, but I will just have the nurse take Xander. I don't want somebody coming in here with a
Yeah.
with a bag. That's too
Yeah.
much.
Oh
And
yeah.
so dressed him up in a beautiful outfit, and we said goodbye to him, and um, that was uh, that was on a Saturday, and then his funeral and burial was a week from that day.
Hmm.
So you know, it's you just
Yeah. A
do
young father having to make decisions. A young parents having to make decisions about. I remember just being so flabbergasted by, well, do we bury him? Do we cremate?
yeah.
What do we do? And
It's it.
you know,
And I don't we don't know. Like again, we're not from here,
oh
so we
yeah.
don't know. And so there's a beautiful Catholic cemetery that's close to downtown, and I remember we have a wonderful deacon that was here for quite some time, and I said, Deacon, you got to help me here. I have no idea what to do. I said, just tell me who I need to talk to, how to do it, and just we'll figure it out from there. And so he was great. There's a beautiful area, they call it Babyland, where
Yeah.
they bury infant children, and Xander's there in Babyland, and it's where he is. I wonder how he's doing from time to time, but he's there. You had a beautiful funeral and a beautiful service, and you just what do you do?
Yeah.
It's, I guess, like the hardest. You play the what if game all the time, and
Yeah.
we look at the what ifs from a I was telling you earlier, like, okay, talking about him helps me feel like he's here. We always ask Xavier, and I'll tell you, this is one of the coolest things about Xavier ever was Xavier started learning how to learn how to talk, and you at one point I remember I asked him because I wanted to know, like, I want to see what he thinks. You don't he's maybe like 17, 18 months old at this time. I said, hey Xavier, where's Xander? And he would just point up to the ceiling. I'm like, All right, no shot. This is fake. Like this whole God in heaven thing has to be real. Like when your 18-month-old son
Yeah.
just points to the heavens and points to the sky and stuff like that, and that's pretty cool. And that's I honestly like it stinks, but that's when you know like it's gonna be okay.
Yeah.
Um, and you realize that there's something greater at work here than this. And I remember I got mad once. I got really angry one time, and I remember it was a few days after Xander had passed away, and I remember I was coming back to go spend time with Xavier, and the front entrance is locked up. You got to go walk all the way around to the ER side and go through that way. And I remember I was walking with a gentleman, and I, again, this is, I can, not the kind of human being that I'd probably ever interact with because of, like I don't, I'm
Hmm.
not my kind of people that I would, just a lot of stuff that was not had some red flags. And I
Yeah.
remember he's, I'm muttering under my breath, this is BS. I don't want to walk around here, and the guy said to me, he goes, "Hey, why are you here?" I said, "Well, my wife had twins. One of them passed away, and one of them's still alive, and we're just gonna go visit them and everything." And he goes, "What's your name?" I said, "Jason." He goes, "Tell me how you feel right now." I'm like, "Oh, what? I'm tired." He goes, "Man, no, tell me." I said, "This, it's you and me. It's two men. How do you feel?" And I let loose. I was angry. I just let every bit of anger out, F bombs and everything in the world, just about how, mad at God, mad at the situation. How can you, like I still, I do struggle with this part. Like, we're settled in the middle of life. And we're set and we get, we achieve a pregnancy and then, oh, it's twins. And then, okay, we're ready. We're ready to embrace all this. And the next thing you know, it's okay. God decides to call one of them home. Like, what, this is unfair. And I always believe this too. It's like, to me, like, there's people in this world that can't have kids that should have kids.
Yeah.
Why us? Why does that? Why couldn't you just give why couldn't you just give the pregnancy to kids to a family that needs it, that is ready for that? And I was so mad. And this guy says to me, he looks me dead in the eyes and he says, "Jason, God doesn't make mistakes." And I said, "Oh, like you realize this. Like, it's true. God
Yeah.
doesn't make mistakes." And you think to yourself, "Oh my gosh, this is a person who I would never interact with on a normal basis." And you're brought with this person because of a confluence of situations that brings you in that moment. You're right there, and he says something that just brings you to your knees. Like
Yeah.
he doesn't make mistakes. And then so you're thinking to yourself, "Oh my gosh, like okay, now I feel horrible." And and then I just remember, this I'm never gonna see this guy again. You give him a hug and shake hands and off you go. And but I just remember that like it was the only time I ever really lost control, like from an anger perspective. And but gosh, like just again, like the emotions that on a minute by minute hourly basis was something that's ingrained in my mind forever.
Yeah.
So
It's, I have had a time when I was extremely mad at God as well, and
yeah,
but my relationship with my Heavenly Father is that of a totally loving Heavenly Father
right.
with a rebellious child, and I know that He loves me
Right.
no matter what.
Yeah.
And the anger, the pain, the frustrations that I've felt with Him is that of, I've got a 4-year-old son now,
Yeah.
and the anger and pain that he feels towards me for making him clean up his toys, and
Yeah.
you just go like,
No,
you'll
it's
someday
yeah.
learn. You'll someday understand.
And yeah, like I said, Xavier's great. You realize, and it's when you realize it's going to be okay. Like that moment with that man, and the moment when Xavier said, I said, "Where's Xander?" I'm just curious. He's up there. And even nowadays, like you can see him. You can see that his presence is there
Yeah.
in our house or somewhere. Even last night, I guess he made the comment. Xavier said, "Xander's poking me, Mom," and you know, well, tell Xander to stop poking. He said, Xander, stop poking me. And he's talking to thin air, but um,
Yeah.
it's something that it's very powerful and special. And I obviously Xavier doesn't he can't grasp all this yet, but
Yeah.
I do, I don't want it to come too soon because it means he's growing up too fast,
Yeah.
but I do embrace the day that Sarah and I can tell him about his brother
Yeah.
and the fact that he's that's his brother, that's his twin brother, that
Yeah.
it's his carbon copy. Like there's times when I'll you get wistful and everything, and I'll when I stare at Xavier, I just try to envision his brother being this spirit or something, just standing next to him in some
Yeah.
nice white robe and everything that's his same side, looks exactly the same. So obviously because they're identical twins, so
Yeah.
they're going to look the same and everything. And but I think the part for me is where I'm at with this is that I every day I think of him.
Mhm.
Not a day goes by I don't think about him, but I think I'm able to cope
Yeah.
okay with it because of the finality of it, I guess. Like like I always, always make the comment to people here, like woulda, coulda, shoulda is undefeated. Like, well, you should have done this, coach. You should have, if we would have done this, we would have won. Like, okay,
Yeah.
woulda, coulda, shoulda is undefeated. And, you know, but with death, with Xander's passing and even with when my father passed away, like you come to grips with it, you're at peace with it. You have to move forward. I don't say move on. That's
Yeah.
not the way
Oh,
to say it. I
yeah.
say you move
No.
forward.
You move forward.
There's nothing in this world there's nothing that I can do to bring him back. There's nothing I can ever do. So I can't woulda, coulda, shoulda it. And nor that's not healthy.
Yeah.
If we woulda, coulda, shoulda have gone to the doctors at a certain no, there's nothing we could do.
Yeah.
Like it's done. You're not gonna bring him back. And so how do you move forward? I mean, now it's one step forward, and I think you try to find ways to, especially after that all happened. Like I remember, I for my own kids, the three boys for Louis, Clark, and Oscar, like yes, okay, get them back to school as soon as they don't miss school. I
Yeah.
don't want them. They need to be in a routine. Um, Sarah was obviously, spending time at the NICU with Xavier, and for me, like I didn't want to be in the classroom I needed about a week or so just to kind of
Yeah.
gather my wits about myself. But to me, like, the one thing that's always been there, has been baseball. And, you try to stay busy with that. And you try to, that was my normalcy. It's always been the one thing that I could always fall back on to say, okay, okay. This is something I know that I'm comfortable with, that I'm in my own world. I'm going to understand this and I'll do what I need to do to just try to kill a couple hours of my day. So, but no, Xander's there. I know he's there, and but it's I think the cool part, about the twins, about Xavier is I think for him, I was not. I don't want to think. I don't want people to think that I was like a horrible father or husband, but with the first three boys, I was not. present enough in their lives because I was,
Yeah,
I
yeah,
was way too involved with work life and
yeah.
my own,
Well,
professional aspirations of what I
we're not
wanted to.
judging.
Yeah, but I think that one of the things that I was really welcoming, like, oh my gosh, I have a chance now, not to right wrongs because it's what it is, but
Mhm.
hey, I'm gonna be a better father to Xander and Xavier than I'm gonna be more present, more available to them than I was to the first three.
Yeah,
And of course now, with Xavier, I every minute, you get to spend with him it's special. I think he knows he's special, and not just because of the fact that he's the baby and he's 2.5 years old. I think he has a very keen sense of that. His circumstances are very unique and very that he has a story behind him. He doesn't know it yet, but he knows he's special. I know he's special too. So like he can get away with murdering him. Oh, it's okay, Xavier. You're special. You're
yeah,
very special to mom and dad for more than you'll ever know at this point. But it's okay. It's don't hit your brother anymore. So he's but again, like God, I don't know. Like it's I'm lucky, blessed that Xavier's here. That yes, life is what it is, but I'm so lucky that he's here
yeah,
because if we had lost both, I don't know if Sarah and I don't know how we managed that. And I can tell you that, there are some tough just from we have our moments
yeah,
just as parents who have lost a child and not easy. Just but Xavier's very much a very much a saving grace for us as a family.
yeah. I have a question.
Sure.
The name Xander.
Mhm.
How did you guys? Where did it come from? Why
I
did?
so the interesting part about um I should give you just like we our family, we have Lewis, Clark, and Oscar. So our first one, Lewis, his first and middle names are taken from maternal grandparents, and then my side, maternal grandparents from both sides.
Yeah,
So from both sides of the family. And then so when we had Clark, we're like, all right, well, Lewis and Clark, that sounds cool. That sounds funny. We
yeah,
also, during that time, a lot of superhero movies between Marvel and DC, and like I said, okay, well, this is cool. We're gonna name him Clark because the whole Lewis and Clark thing, but also Clark Kent because of Superman, and
yeah.
and his middle name is Anthony for Tony Stark, and his initials spell out Cap for Captain America. Oh, by the way, Captain America's mother's name is Sarah. My wife's name is Sarah. That's cool. And so that's how we named Clark. And then Oscar, we named Oscar after Bishop Oscar Romero, Oscar Romero, who was assassinated while celebrating Mass. So and he's got he's Oscar George Alfredo because George, our oldest son, was very distraught that he wasn't going to have a girl. I wasn't going to have a baby sister
Mm,
because he just didn't have a baby sister. Not because, just because he didn't
yeah.
have one. So all right, you can pick the middle name. So he named Oscar's first middle name is George because of George from Peppa Pig. And then, we gave, my father passed away 10 days before Oscar was born. And one of my mom's kind of gentle, firm request was, can you put your father's name? And I said, yeah, that's
Hmm.
fine.
Yeah,
So, like every good Filipino, he's got multiple middle names and everything. So yeah. So with Xander and Xavier, like we wanted to go with something, I guess alliteration, something that was pretty, that sounds. I wanted so it sounded cool and tough and powerful. I mean, if you're a Cubs fan and I'm assuming you're a Bulls fan too, or no? Okay,
we're
well,
from Utah.
Okay,
If it
okay.
wasn't
So
for if it
yeah,
wasn't for the Bulls, we'd have two
that's
championships.
true. So I did jokingly say Michael and Scotty, but
Yeah,
my wife said no because she's a Cavs fan. So whatever. But
yeah,
we're going through the books and everything. Like we wanted to do the alliteration,
yeah,
and obviously just because of whatever experiences we've had with different names, like maybe there was a student that we don't like that name, so we're not going to give that name to our kids,
yeah.
or so Xander and Xavier. Uh, the X was cool. I don't know. Like
Yeah.
just it had a nice ring to it. And honestly, when we did the whole baby A and baby B thing, like, I told Sarah, I don't care, but like in my mind, it was okay. I can remember that Xander is baby A and Xavier's baby B because of the alphabetize. When you alphabetize their names,
Yeah.
Xander comes first before Xavier if you're going to alphabetize. But yeah, that's how we came up with the names.
Well, that's cool.
Yeah, it's what it is. Nothing. There's no like weird symbolism to it or
Yeah.
you know
Well,
anything like that. But
a name can come from almost anything. So,
correct. Yep.
so,
So,
well, that's
but yeah.
wonderful. Well, before we close this up, is there anything else that you would like to tell us about your son
Oh
Xander?
gosh. I guess I don't know if I guess with people if there's other men, other fathers who are listening, like it's like I think one of the things that I've had to learn through all this is it's okay not being okay. Get a lot of moments of weakness. Meaning just like not like you give it like not temptations, not stuff like that, but like, all right, it's okay to cry.
Yeah.
It's okay to it's okay to feel the emotions you're going to feel because this is something that nothing prepares you for. And if people ever if moms and dads ever get a chance to be a part of groups that you can be with to be able to share your stories, to be
Hmm.
able to know you're in a safe place that it's okay to let loose and be angry. Like my wife and I, we spent our anniversary last year. We actually went to a retreat for parents that were grieving the loss of a child.
Yeah.
And I remember like, gosh, it was like, oh, okay, well, and our anniversary, we can go do something. We went to a retreat, and it was I felt safe
Yeah.
where I was at. Like it was, all right, these people, and again, like I understand that my identity comes from being a baseball coach and a teacher, and I get that. But for a few days, I just got to be Jason,
Yeah.
a dad, a husband, somebody I could share my story with, and that's all they need to know about me. They don't need to know anything about my career or anything about, what my wife and I do for a living. Like we're just parents.
Yeah.
And it was a relief and you felt safe. I think one of the most, it just you're at peace. And I hope that my hope and prayers for dads and for moms that go through this is that like you're not alone. People there's always going to be people that are going to be there for you.
Yeah.
I think one of the to be able to comfort somebody in their moments of need is something that I'm just glad that my wife and I can be that for people and know that there's always going to be people praying for you. There's always going to be people that are going to be there for you, and things will figure itself out. And like that guy, like that man said, God doesn't make mistakes. Um, but it's an interesting journey. I can tell you that much. It's not when you put
Yeah.
this in life experiences. This is not one that I want to. I
Yeah.
I couldn't wish this on my worst enemy. But this is what God deals us, and we have to find a way to handle ourselves and understand like and for us we have kids. I still have to be a good father to them. I still have to, there's going to be times to wallow. There's going to be times to feel sorry for yourself. But man, like nothing can shake you out of that funk more than when you know that your child, that is there and present with you right at that moment needs you. And hopefully that, I pray for all parents that, that suffer from child loss, that they have the grace and the fortitude to to find their way, and that understand that and hope that they're going to be okay. So,
Well, thank you, Jason.
oh, you're
And
welcome.
and thank you so much for coming on and being so open and vulnerable and telling us about your precious son, Xander.
Xander. He's special. I have a coping mechanism, and it's kind of a weird. I always so I at the school where I coach at, I cut the grass, and it's like, I just hope that it looks good for him. I wanted to look down and say, "Oh, Dad, you did a good job with it."
You
"Oh,
did a
Dad, it
good.
looks awful. It doesn't look very good today." You kind of miss you miss a
Uh,
spot there, but I know he's looking out for all of us. I know he's looking out for his brothers. He's looking out for his mom and dad, and I pray that I know that my own father and he and my dad are messing around up there, and all of our loved ones. He's in a wonderful place that hopefully many many years from now I'll be able to see him again.
yeah, he'll be waiting
So
for you.
he will be. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Jason.
Thank you.